You don't have the votes. That is what President-elect Donald Trump reportedly told Matt Gaetz during a phone call today, ending Gaetz's hopes of becoming Attorney General. On the call, first reported by the Bulwark's Mark Caputo, Trump reportedly said these senators aren't moving. Joining me now are two good friends of this show, Tim Miller, co-host of the Bulwark podcast, and Mark Leibovich, staff writer for The Atlantic. I'm trying to think of how to categorize the behavior of Senate Republicans here, Tim. Shred of decency comes to mind. None of them really came out and said to the media publicly they wouldn't vote for Matt Gaetz, but they were clearly saying that behind closed doors, and it sounds like it mattered. Do you have, I won't say renewed faith in Senate Republicans to maybe withstand the pressures of Trump, but do you have any more optimism after a day like today?
Maybe slightly. All of these courageous Republicans, who go on background and talk to people like Mark Leibovich to criticize Donald Trump over the last 9 years, that finally became useful, right? You can be courageous talking on background to reporters, and apparently you can be courageous in private with Matt Gaetz. So I thought that Gaetz was going to get through, just to be candid. And so the fact that he withdrew means that I should update my priors a little bit about what might be happening on the Hill. I remain deeply skeptical that when the rubber meets the road on one of these other nominations, and when the nominee is actually put up and they have to go to the vote and they have to vote against Donald Trump, I think it's going to be challenging to get more than 2 or 3 votes, but they only need 4, right? They have a very narrow majority here. So I guess I would update my priors to say maybe there's a glimmer of hope, which is nice. A glimmer of hope is nice. But I think that this might have been a pretty unique situation that was maybe unique to Matt just because of his, let's say, not so swell personal relationships with his colleagues.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking that too as well, Mark, that this was made more difficult for Gaetz by the fact that most people, including people in his own party, don't like him on Capitol Hill. And it doesn't necessarily portend anything for Pete Hegseth, who faces a serious sexual assault potential scandal, alleged scandal, and on paper should be equally as disturbing to the same Senate Republicans. But will he be? I don't know. Do you have a thought about whether this is an apples to apples comparison, or is it apples to pomegranates?
Well, first of all, I do think, to sort of pick up on what Tim was saying, the rubber never hit the road here. Gaetz not only made it hard for himself and easy for Trump to sort of pull away from this, he also made it pretty easy for the senators because they never really had to speak, as Tim said, publicly. They never really had to really say anything for the record that would be counted and that would get noticed here. They sort of spoke quietly en masse, I guess. And Gaetz was such a unique case. I think the larger thing here is you could argue that Hegseth is equally problematic. You can even go, you can say Kennedy is problematic. You can say Gabbert's problematic. There is a scenario here which is probably very unrealistic given the recent history and the sycophantic nature of the Republican Party today, in which 4, 6, whatever, some number of them could actually lock arms and say, no, we actually want to have some decency here, some shred of check and balance, and you're going to, put some nominees up that we can actually debate and confirm. We haven't seen anything in the ballpark of that happening yet. But look, I think it does become a little easier to do this going forward once you have one nominee withdraw, which is what we had today.
To that end, Tim, there are the dynamics at play among the Senate Republican conference. There's also the Trump of it all. I, like you, had a hard time believing that Trump would pull a nominee or make the phone call. You don't have the votes, right? Just sticking it to members of his own party, making them walk the plank is something from if the past is prologue, something he likes to do and would have been expected to do again. But Mark Caputo reports dumping Gaetz constituted a remarkable about-face for Donald Trump, who had not only been adamant that Gaetz would be his attorney general, but who had floated the possibility of using a recess appointment to install him. And it signified an awareness by Trump that though he won big, fighting such pointed battles within his own party wasn't worth the sacrifice of time. It is hard for me to see the words awareness and Donald Trump in the same sentence, Tim. But what do you make of that? Trump just saying it's not worth the headache.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the best observation you can give about Donald Trump in this situation is like he is not a long-term strategic thinker, to say the least, right? This is the person that lives off the land, and he goes with his gut, and for whatever reason, a confluence of events, maybe one conversation that he had today, maybe the other thing is my spidey sense is up a little bit on this. Like Matt Gaetz sent out a tweet, I believe, responding to J.D. Vance, where he said that he can fight for this administration from another post. Kind of a vague term, another post. So maybe they figured something out in the back. That I think that remains to be seen. So to me, I think the question is, does this type of strategic Donald Trump stay, or was it a one-off thing? And I'm inclined to think it's a one-off, but I think it's something to monitor over the next few months, because it is a question. As Mark says, it could be a question. I mean, Mitch McConnell does not like Robert F. Kennedy's anti-vax stance. There's a couple of neocon hawks left in the Senate that don't like Tulsi Gabbard. Pete Hegseth, I would go further than both of you and say is less qualified, and there are more serious objections to him than could have been put forth by Matt Gaetz. So, then if Trump is facing rejection on multiple fronts, do we see the lash out Trump, the bullying Trump, the one that wants to humiliate people? My suspicion is yes, but we'll see.
Can we talk about Mitch McConnell for a minute? Because I am also struck by this, Mark, the way Tim is pointing out. Mitch McConnell has made himself the head of the Senate Rules Committee, like leapfrogging over other people who might have it. He's retiring. He's not a fan of Trump. Trump insulted racist slurs against Mitch McConnell's wife. Like, Mitch McConnell could go out like Yosemite Sam, guns blazing, and be like, not on my watch. This is, he could link arms with Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, or Tom Tillis, or, I don't know, John Cornyn. I mean, how much of a factor do you think his personal animus towards Trump could be, in play here, and how effective could he be as a bulwark against Trump, as a character that knows the ins and outs of the Senate?
Yeah, I mean, he could certainly be effective because, the loyalty that he has coming in with his other members just from his time as leader. It's also perhaps a little easier for him because he's outgoing at this point, not outgoing verbally, outgoing as far as leaving the job of majority leader or Republican leader at this point. So he's no longer in leadership. The rules job is interesting, but I do think that he'll have a level of independence that he's never had before. Having said that, we've seen Mitch McConnell over and over and over again come up way short of being any kind of meaningful bulwark against Donald Trump, despite his own personal reservations. I would be very, very hesitant to have any confidence about that whatsoever.
Yes, I should caveat that. I mean only in terms of nominating absolutely bonkers people to the cabinet, and bonkers really like extreme level, capital B bonkers, italics, bold and underlined. Mitch McConnell does not have any record of standing up to some of the most vicious aspects of MAGAism and Trump.